A lot of times when somebody is particularly being bullying, practicing tactics of in some way being nasty and just amazingly difficult, where no matter what you do and say, they're going to find a way to put you down for it. And you try to react to the situation, you try to respond to the situation by pointing out what they're doing. And some other supposedly neutral, impartial person comes along and says, well, look what you're doing, you're getting upset. So what you're doing is you're allowing this person to push your buttons. Why don't you just ignore them? Don't get upset about it. And then they won't be able to push your buttons. And then what happens is that suggestion in your mind puts an impediment in you, so that when you naturally, when this person that's bullying you starts doing something or saying something that's aggressive towards you, you have this little voice in your head now saying, oh, but don't respond, because if you respond, you're allowing that person to push your buttons. So you're the one who's wrong because you're responding. And the problem is that your responses to the other person are part of your natural survival instinct of defending yourself. A billion years of evolution have instilled into your natural responses, into your system, the reflex that you will respond appropriately to a situation. That if a car is coming at you, that you will get out of the way. That if something is sticking into you, you will pull it out. That if you are hungry, you will find something to eat. These are natural responses to situations, and they are all appropriate. And then someone comes and puts this prohibition in your mind and says, oh no, you must not respond, because then what you're doing is you're allowing them to push your buttons. Well, those buttons, they're saying that because you're responding, that person is pushing your buttons. Well, that person is pushing your buttons by doing whatever they're doing, and those so-called buttons are your natural response system to try to make them stop. And what happens is these third-party people, very often people in a position of responsibility and power, the people who ought to be putting their foot down and saying, yeah, you know what? You stop doing that. Stop bullying. Leave that person alone. But instead of saying, stop bullying, leave that person alone, instead they say to the victim, stop letting that person push your buttons. So that's just compounding the problem, where the person who is the victim of the bullying, on top of that, has this prohibition put on him that if he or she tries to respond to the bullying, then it's his own fault. Then he is at least equally as guilty of the fact that he's getting upset, rather than putting a stop to the thing that is upsetting in the first place. So you're letting him push your buttons suggestion is just another way to try to ensure that the victim continues being a victim, because it's saying shut off your natural defense mechanisms. That's what it's doing. That's what it's really doing. It's saying shut off your natural defense. If you don't like being a victim, well then shut off your natural defense mechanism so you can continue being a victim without any protection whatsoever. And we're certainly not going to protect you. We're not even going to believe you when you say that this person is doing these things to you. So this is the way in which people in positions of power and responsibility and authority, or even other people who assume that role by being the supposedly impartial bystanders, this is the way that they cooperate in the bullying, participate in the bullying, by further instructing the victim that the victim must shut off natural defenses against the bullying. So next time somebody says, oh, he's just letting you push his buttons, stop and think for a second. Is this other person actually just joining in and compounding the bullying by instructing you that you're not even supposed to be able to respond to it? Whereas if you would actually allow yourself to respond, very often you can stop the bullying that way. Especially if somebody, some third party, some person in authority, will actually listen to your objections and try to understand exactly why you are getting upset, and maybe come to the realization that you're right, and this other person is being a fucking bully and does need to be put a stop to. But that's not what usually happens. It's usually blame the victim and make the victim participate in his own victimization by shutting off his own defense mechanisms, by telling him, oh, don't let them push your buttons. Those buttons are there for a reason. Those buttons took 1 billion years to evolve so that they could be effective in putting a stop to problems. And when you shut off those buttons, the natural result is the same thing as your body's immune system to diseases, viruses, and invasions of other organisms. You have what we call the immune system, a natural defense mechanism, a response by your body to try to fight off attacks. If your body has a natural defense mechanism designed over 1 billion years to fight off physical attacks, don't you think that your mind also has built-in defense mechanisms designed to fight off attacks? And yet what we do is we say, oh, the problem is if you're responding to attacks, you need to shut off your defense mechanisms. And you know what? Do we say, oh well, you're that's okay? So what that's like is, if your body starts showing signs of fighting off physical attacks by disease and viruses, so what signs does your body show in those instances? Well, things like, for instance, sneezing, coughing, sore throat, vomiting, headaches. These are all signs that your body is actually trying to fight off attackers. And if you say at that point, oh, well, okay, here, the problem is you're sneezing, you're coughing, you're vomiting, it's because you have a defense mechanism, your immune system is trying to fight off invaders. Why don't we just disable your immune system? So we'll give you these drugs to make you stop coughing and stop sneezing and stop vomiting in the name of, well, if we can suppress these responses, then that'll be okay and we won't have a problem. But if you suppress those responses, defense responses of your immune system that have taken 1 billion years to evolve, then that makes your immune system is disabled, and that makes you vulnerable to those physical aspects that are going to be attacking you. And when a person's when a person's immune system is disabled, it's called things like AIDS or autoimmune deficiency. Autoimmune deficiency. It's basically, we call it AIDS. And then we think that AIDS is the thing that's killing you. But it's the lack of the body's natural immune system, which is the thing that's killing you with AIDS. And it's the same thing in non-physical manners. If somebody's attacking you with attitudes and behaviors, and the response that was said is, oh, well, you need to shut off your immune system, your mental and verbal, shut off your mental and verbal immune system, then what happens? You're going to succumb to the attacks. So fuck that. Next time somebody says, don't stop letting them push your buttons, say, go fuck yourself, because you're part of the problem. I'm going to defend myself. I'm going to stand up for what's real and oppose this bullshit, unwarranted attacks on me. There's nothing wrong with defending yourself if you're able to keep a level head. Of course, that's part of the tactics of bullying, is they drive you crazy, so it becomes very difficult not to keep a level head. But when nobody's even attempting to look at it from your point of view and understand what you're going through, it makes it very easy for people to drive you crazy. So if somebody's seems to be pushing you over the edge by pushing your buttons, and nobody's listening to what you're saying, and then they're turning to you and say, oh, look at you, you're acting crazy, you should stop letting them push your buttons. How about you should start listening to what I've been saying all along, and maybe you'd understand why I'm acting what you call acting crazy. Because nobody's fucking listening to me, and that includes you. And now you come along and tell me, stop, don't let them push your buttons. Fuck you, I might end up hitting you. Or, well, I would if I didn't have enough self-control. Just be thankful I have enough self-control and I don't fucking hit you. And shut the fuck up with your don't let them push your buttons bullshit. Because you're starting to join in now and participate in the bullying activity with this crappy, complete crap advice. The end.